Okay. Alright, I'm live now. Whew. I guess, I'll start off by doing the underlayer. Right here I did, like, the undersketch. So I did it with charcoal and some graphite. And today I'm going to be using, like, gouache and stuff over top to hopefully make it to my liking. So, pretty much for my color palette, I just have primary colors. And I'll be mixing everything based off of that. And, yes, hope for the best. Which is just typical of art. It's always hoping for the best. So I'll probably take just my palette knife here. Probably start with, like, the yellows on his face. So, probably like a really light yellow here. Because skin color, when you look at it, there tends to be a lot of other colors within it, regardless of like the tone of skin. Like there's usually always like blues, reds, and yellows within everyone's skin. Yellows tend to sit a bit more higher up, I would say. Like a little bit underneath your eyes and a little bit up towards your forehead. So I'm just gonna take this and just kind of thin it out a little. So pretty much just very gently spread out the yellows. It's very much trust the process for a little bit starting off. But yes. So we got the yellow there. Probably thin that out just a little bit more. For the fixing the graphite and charcoal, I just used hairspray so that it shouldn't smear while I'm using this water-based medium. So far it's proven to be working. Alright. Sometimes there's a little bit of yellow down towards around your mouth as well. So I'll probably get that in there real quick. Probably thin that out just a little. Alright, now I'll do probably the reds in there. So I'll take my palette knife, clean it off, because my gosh, don't want to get some other colors in there, make a mess. I learned that the hard way. Get kind of like ew, got like fibers from my freaking napkin on there. That's not cool. Pretty much just mix that. Now this is almost a little too pink for what I'm going for. So I might just put in a little bit of blue to balance it off. That is a little too much blue. Little goes a long way. It's a little too purpley now. Gosh dang it, man. See, mixing color is always a little bit of a guessing game. It's never an exact science. Okay. Well, I mean, I guess I could thin that out just a little bit with the water too. Take the brush here. Get that going. Yeah, that's more what I was going for. Okay. So the reds on the face tend to sit more like on your cheek area. Oh gosh, I got fiber in there. Ah, no! Get off! Freaking paper towel fiber. Okay. Tend to sit on your cheek structure and around your nose. So pretty much, I guess like Santa Claus a little bit. It's pretty true. Having that red nose. I'm not gonna worry too much about the ears, but your ears tend to be a bit more red in tone. I think I'll spread out the red just a little bit so it's not so like streaky. Of course, that's just personal preference. Style wise, I would say I guess I'm going for more of a German expressionist look. He's gonna look like a clown for a little bit. I apologize in advance. Now we're gonna move on to the blues. So pretty much just get your little swatch of blue over here. Bam. Clean off that palette knife. And then, it's kind of like a corpsey blue, so like a very drowned out blue. This tends to be more predominant in male figures around, like, I guess the 5 o'clock shadow area. When you're doing, like, females, it just depends. But most of the time, females don't have a very pronounced, I guess, 5 o'clock shadow area in comparison. It's pretty much just take a little bit of this. There's also a little bit of blue under the eyes. So pretty much just filling out where all the warm and cool tones are. Sometimes, depending on the figure, you can have a little bit of a cool area up in the crease. But overall, I'd say that's pretty much it. So for the most part, I'm just focusing on the head right now. Everything else will come, like, after the fact. Because that's just how I function. But yeah. Spread that out. Okay. I got that going. Start kind of focusing. Well, actually, hold on. I gotta fill just a little bit more yellow on the bridge of the nose here. There we go. Okay. Now that we got that going, I can pretty much start making the skin tone to go over top of this. Now, this is only my 3rd time using gouache, so I'm figuring it out as I go. So far, I found out it's just a lot of layering, and it's pretty forgiving so far, so that's good. But overall, you know, nothing too bad. Alright. Sorry about that. So now I'm just gonna get my palette knife out. Now this mixing skin tone is a little tricky sometimes. There's the freaking fibers again from the paper towel trying to mess me up. Just because you kind of want to make a brown to start off with. So to make brown, you tend to just take all of your primary colors here and you mix them together until you get what you need. It's a lot of just trying to get it close to what you need. Now this is almost a bit too purple for my taste, so gotta add just a little bit more of that yellow in there. Probably just a smidge more yellow. I think I just added a little too much yellow, but we'll see. Yeah, that's like jaundice right there. I need to add a little bit of red in there. Not that much. Just a little dash. Okay, that's more brown. Yes, okay, brown has entered the chat. So now we're gonna put this right here. And what I tend to do is just use a little bit of white, which some people would consider a sin to use white to lighten up your colors, but I don't really understand how else you would lighten it. I guess you'd use the complementary color to lighten it, is what I've been told. But for me, that's never quite worked out. So I'll just take the white and lighten it. Alright. Probably add just a little bit more in there. Now there are some orangey hues in my reference, but that'd be a later layer. Right now we're just trying to solidify the skin. Which I'll probably use... Well, no, I'll probably use my bigger brush. Make sure it's cleaned off. Alright, and then now probably just do that. Alright. Okay. Just kind of lightly go over the layers I established. Probably come back to the lips here in a second. Try not to get this too muddy, but we'll figure it out. Oops. Accidentally laid that on a little too heavy, but we'll make it work. Okay. I do have to go back over just with a little bit of a heavier layer to get it going. Just so that we could get out of the clown stage, is what I like to call it. makes a little bit more skin tone. Man, it's a lot of layering. A lot of layering. Okay. Just gonna use a little bit of white here to try to counteract whatever's going on. And I'll try not to do it too lightly. Okay. There we go. Just needed that little touch, you know. Probably should get his neck going. This part of the process is always just a little scary. It's scary till it isn't. I think what's not helping him is the fact that I don't really have his eyes filled out just yet, so I'll probably do that here in a second. But it's just that something about that underpainting, I don't know what it is, but it's just like it brings out the skin tone a little bit more. It's just very much trust the process. Get the jaundice out of his lip area. There we go. It's getting there. Really stick some more lighter tones in there. Oh lordy. Okay, there we go. Dampen the brush just a smidge. And yes, I'll go back and lighten the areas that need to be lightened just a bit. But the reference I have is pretty dark to begin with. Alright. Let's get a little bit more over here. Yeah, I'll fill out the eyeballs real quick, and then work on the lips, and then that should resolve some issues. Probably start with more of a lighter tone in the eyes. Here. Oh gosh, it got unfocused. Okay, there we go. My lord. Okay, there we go. I think the lighting, like, what I'm seeing compared to what y'all are seeing is just a little different. Maybe I need to adjust the brightness. Hold on. Yeah. It's a bit closer to what I'm seeing. So now, I guess let me fill out the lips. Kind of like reddish, I'd say. Probably pull it out just a little bit more. And then there are some browns, like in the crease here. Oh lord. Okay. I'll pull that out just a little bit. Okay. I'll go back and get some of the lighter tones back in there. Very much a layering process, y'all. Like, there's some light tones going on here, on the bridge of the nose. Very much here in the brow area. As well as over here. Kind of mix that just a little bit into there. Still a little bit of a light spot down here. I wonder if it's like... Oh gosh, I was trying to move my light. Just about lost it. Okay. Okay, there we go. Okay, I'm just not gonna touch that. That was scary. Alright. So I'm gonna kind of exaggerate just a little bit of what's going on in some of these areas. Just to bring it out a little bit more. Because it definitely needs some exaggeration. Like 100%. Yeah, there we go. Probably put some in there. There's some like undershadows going on here. There's also a lot of shadowing going on over here. I think over here is just like throwing it off right now. Yeah, already so much better. So that's just a little bit of a shadow going on up here. Definitely up here as well. I'll just pull those out a little bit with some water. Kind of like that. And shadow up in here. Perfect. There we go. Now we're cooking. It just needed that exaggeration. Cause my goodness, it was looking scary for a little bit there. I mean, of course, the subject itself is scary, but like, you know. And then there are some shadows kind of over underneath, I guess, what we would perceive as the left side over here. They're just not as harsh as what I have going on over here on the right side of the face. There is a little bit of a shadow under the lip there, and I think once I put that little shadow there, it'll just bring it all out. Yeah, you see, it's just like little stuff like that. It helps so much. Of course, I gotta soften that, but it's just the little touches. It's always the little touches, especially when you're painting. Even while I was drawing the charcoal graphite under drawing is like a lot of tweaking until it's to my liking. So now we'll go back over to this side of the face to get the little hint of shadows going on there. So probably won't use as much brown over here. There's like just that little underneath there and kind of stroke here to bring out the nose just a little bit more. I might just exaggerate it just a little bit more than what I have going on in the reference. Because I'm not going for one-to-one, I'm going for more of, I guess, the vibe. For lack of better words. And so, let's see. I think I'll get the underneath of here blocked out because I need something breaking up the head from the neck. Gotta get that shadow back in here. There's a little gnat flying around. Alright. Do you have to bring some definition back into the nose? Because, well, I defined over here, I didn't quite define under here. So it's like, it's almost there. It just needs that definition. The touches. Okay. I try not to rest my hand on my work, but it's bad habit. It just happens. Sometimes it just has to be that way. I know for a fact all of my art pieces have some sort of my DNA in them, for sure. That was always one of the complaints when I was in art class. They'd be like, there's a hair in this. And I'd be like, oh, whoops. My bad. If anyone's in the chat bar, I'm so sorry. I haven't been getting anything through. If there has been anyone chatting, I saw hearts just pop up, but I'm not sure. You know, like I can't see if anyone's joined or anything. So I don't know. I'll just be like, I'll throw a heart. Okay, that did absolutely nothing. I am such a noob. I apologize in advance. Okay. I'll figure that out eventually. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you, green and purple. Alright. So now I know that's working. So pretty much right now I'm just adding in the little details to bring the nose out. It's very much a process. So far we're getting out of the clown stage. Yeah, thank you. Now I'm gonna get distracted by the comments. Oh my gosh. You see, this is my trial. This is my trial. Just keep working. Man, I lost my train of thought there. Okay. I remember saying something about art class and my DNA always being in it because my hair kept getting in my paintings. But, yeah. Oh yeah, there's another thing in art class that I always just thought was an insult until recently. Basically, people, well, not people, but it was the art professors that I had. They'd be like, your art is just so human. And thinking back on that, I was like, man, that was kind of backhanded to say. But now with like AI and all that taking over, I just take it as a compliment that my art's human. Because, dude, I'd rather have my art be perceived as human than freaking robotic. 100%. Oh, Lord have mercy. It's like, I'm so sorry if the camera goes out of focus sometimes. So, yes. It's special. So right now I'm just still trying to bring out all of the shadows to better make sense of the skin thing going on. Yes, and if y'all have any questions or anything, feel free to stick it in the chat bar. I'll try not to be too squirrel-brained. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I just had to exaggerate that plane on his face cuz it's there. It is there and it's here to stay. Now the lips, I do need to go back in and get more of the shadowing in there, because right now they're a little drowned out. Mm. When it comes to lips, you want to try not to outline them if you can. That was something I had to break habit of, was outlining the lips, especially when you're trying to do like a realism kind of look. But today we're just going for like German expressionists, just because that was the one thing that everyone in art class would always be like. They're like, you paint like such a German expressionist. Again, that was another thing I thought I was being insulted with, but I guess that's just defaultly how I paint and draw, so I'll take it as a compliment. Gouache is very interesting. Um, this is like my only like third time using gouache. I was really inspired by like the Indiana Jones posters, like movie posters, because the artist that did them actually used gouache to do all of them. Same with some of the old Star Wars posters. And I don't know, it took me a while to like actually pick up a gouache palette and just say, you know what, let's do this. And now here I am. Yes. The subject is Henry slash Vecna, same person, but emphasis on Henry. Now I'm like getting too focused on the eyeballs. I need to step back and stare for a second, because I'm like, wait a second. I've been focusing on the eyes just a little too much. So let's see. Um okay. Let's see where I gotta go. Probably just get this shadow down in here. Break up the neck from the head, because that's a little bit of the battle, is breaking up those two forms. The nose in itself, nose is very complex, 100%. But I feel like if you can get the highlight and shadow on the nose properly, then it starts to make sense of what's going on. But yeah, overall, it's a lot of tweaking, a lot of playing, until you get something that looks close to what you're going for. And then, of course, later, like, if you want to get really, really good at something, it's about practicing the right things. Because, I mean, no offense to anyone that's like, oh, just draw every day. Yeah, you can draw every day, but if you're not like focusing on the basics and breaking down basic things in a more practice study driven way, then you may not improve. So like sometimes a lot of the times you just have to always go back to the basics. Don't let the masters fool you. They're always drawing their cubes and cylinders and freaking spheres. Because really, like, this, even like with the human form here, it's a lot of just primitive shapes, all together. Like, once you start breaking it out into the basic shapes, it all starts to make more sense. You could see the nose more as like uh, not a cube, like a rectangular prism. And then some other forms, like the eyes, tend to be more sphere-like. And just, it's a lot of just breaking things out into simple ways for you to understand. I think over here not being as dark as it is in my reference is throwing it off too. So, eventually we'll get to everything else on this painting, but I personally feel like once you get the head decent enough, then everything else starts to make more sense. And starts to take shape. Now, over here on his jaw area, it's a little interesting actually, because like it's dark, but with how the light is hitting him, it's almost like a bit kind of downward. The light source on him I think is more like eye level actually. But with how his face structure is and how his head is turned, there's almost like a catch light here a little bit, which is very interesting. Because looking at the reference, it doesn't look like there's another like soft light source over here. It looks like it's more eye level coming at him from like the left over here over. Make sure I don't put my arm in my palette. That's happened before. I think it just needs that little shadow right there to pull it out. It's a lot of looking and playing and trying to see what works, you know? Trying not to muddy this out too much. So far gouache seems to be pretty forgiving for the most part. I could just be mistaken, I don't know. The lips do need just a little bit more tone in them. They're just missing some tones in there. Just a little too flat still. Go start pushing those a little bit more. There is a light spot over here, but around the teeth, that's where it gets dark. I think that's what I was missing, was that little shadow right there. The upper lip, yeah, the upper lip has a little bit of a touch there. In this case, it doesn't look like the upper lip is darker than the lower lip. Because that was a trick too that I learned, that the upper lip tends to be darker in a lot of scenarios. Was it the lower lip? I think it was the upper lip. I'm pretty sure it was the upper lip. But in this case, they almost look even. If that makes sense. Probably pull out the shadows down here a little bit more. So far, it seems like we're pretty much out of the clown phase, 100%. We're getting more towards the secondaries. Now I will probably have to go back in around here with a lighter flesh tone to break it up just a little bit more. Because I got a little carried away with that underlip shadow. So I have to break that back up just a little bit. Yeah, okay. Probably get the shadows back down in here. That could be throwing it off a little bit. Alright. Yeah, that's pulling it out a little bit more. Oh, my lordy. Okay. I guess I can start kind of blocking out the hair a little bit just to sort out any problems. The hair is pretty much in the same vein as the values for the shadows on the skin tones. So let's go ahead and lay some of that out. Probably did that just a smidge too heavy, but it's okay. Just spread it around. And then later we'll get the orange tones in there. I'll probably just use the orange that I have on my palette, because sometimes when I'm mixing this specific red and yellow together, it gets a really weird orange that I'm not trying to go for, because I think the red in this palette is leaning more towards like a pseudo magenta in tone. But we will see. I know there's 100% a reason why they gave me green and orange. That is a fact. Because there's definitely some colors you can't quite just get from mixing. Like there's one painting I did, it's purple, and it's just primarily purple. And the purple that I wanted to achieve, you can't really mix. So I had to use pretty much a tube of purple, of the purple I needed to get what I wanted. And so far, like, getting his hair tones in there is very much helping. Now I will have to go back with some yellow in some areas in his hair. But because it's a very, like, darkly lit scene, his blonde doesn't really shine through that much. Especially over here. Over here is going to be really dark in value, which you can still kind of see in the underpainting I got going. I think I'll use my bigger brush to achieve that a bit faster. Pretty much just tuck that off. Okay. Now, typically, when you're doing stuff like this, you want to take breaks so that you can get what they call fresh eyes. But for the sake of this, I'll pretty much just take very micro breaks and just stare. Which it probably hasn't looked like I've been doing that, but we're getting somewhere. I do need to do some touches of the blonde in his hair. Just because they're there, but they're not like absolutely predominant. So I'll just do like a wash over here, because that's where all of his blonde tones are. Very much small touches. There is just a little bit in this area. And then, go back to my other brush and just kind of wash that out just a smidge so it doesn't look too cartoony. There. Okay. Now we're getting somewhere. I do need to go in and add his brows. His brows, as is, are just really light anyway. I might have to just push them a little, because in the reference, they're just way too freaking light. Way too light. Yeah, it's almost made them too thick, but you know, we're gonna run with it. I think I can kind of wash that out just a little. Yeah, there we go. Okay. No, his eyebrows just gone. You know what? That ain't that bad. We'll table the eyebrows right this second. And let's see. There's a little bit of a shadow going on here because I do need to fill out this area just a little bit more. And it's like always going back and tweaking. I gotta dab it out just a little. Oh my gosh. Thank you. It literally did. The water just was like, you know what? Forget the eyebrows. We're just gonna get rid of them entirely. Flesh tones, I am discovering, are just special when it comes to gouache. So special. I feel like I just need to get a little bit more of this flesh tone going, because it's like I still almost see the underpainting just a little too much for my liking. It's like you want the 5 o'clock shadow to be there, you want the reds to be there, you want the yellows to be there, but it's like just a little too much there, you know? It's not supposed to be that pronounced. Just be a little muted. Probably put that in there. Alright. It's It's getting there, but something about the chin is just a little off. I think it's the undershadow because, like I said, I got way too carried away with that for some reason. So I think I just need to push the light out of the chin because that makes sense. Yeah, okay. Getting somewhere. And there is just a little bit of light going on here as well. A little bit more than what I vouched for. No. There's just a little bit of... Oh my goodness gracious. Okay. It's like this brown just ain't... Okay. There we go. Okay, we're getting somewhere. I need a new saying. I noticed I've been saying we're getting somewhere like way too freaking much. I've arrived at the destination. I don't know. I need a new like phrase to say. Okay. I think I'll go ahead and start filling out some of the actual clothing articles now that I got somewhere. But I feel like, okay, you know what, before I get down there, the eyes, they're still way too white. I wanted to hold off on that, but there's like a little tinge of red in the eyes. Not so much for the fact that, you know, there's, you know, veins in his eyes, because there are not. It is primarily the setting, which will be in a later layer. So just like little touches. And then I gotta kind of dab that out. Oh my goodness. There. Yeah, okay. Much better. Now you can get down to here. Down here is like a creamy-ish tone. It's not quite the cream that I have going on over here. So I guess I'll just kind of mix up a new cream color. Let me get my palette knife before I do something dumb. Okay. Get this going over here. That's just straight up red. Oh my lord. Get more white in there. But it's almost like a yellowish tone too, so I guess I'll have to throw some yellow in there. It's kind of khaki, I would say. But it's like I don't want to mix up brown again, you know? But it's looking like I might have to add just a small tinge of blue to get what I'm looking for. Very small tinge. But I'll kind of scrape this and move it down here. Okay. Oh my goodness. Very small tinge. The blue is just potent. Guess I can just like set that there. Oh gosh. No, now it's like a little too green. What gives, man? What gives? Okay, it's almost what I'm looking for though. So it's like maybe just a little bit more red mixed in there to get that khaki tone. Yeah, okay. That's pretty close. And then obviously I'll commit the carnal sin and add white to lighten it. Cause how dare I? Okay, yeah, that's pretty close. Definitely a much different brown or khaki, I should say. Oh my gosh, it doesn't look too flesh tone. But at the same time, it almost does. So I guess just a little bit more yellow in there. I might actually have to get a little bit of orange from up here. Yeah, just stick that there. Okay. Yeah, that's closer to what I want. Very much closer. There. Alright. Let me clean that off because I'm like, wait a second. There's something on there. Now, this might just be a little too orange in tone now that I'm thinking about it. But we'll go ahead and just lay it down. And we'll probably just dab it out with some water. It's not going to be the exact creamy tone. Okay, yeah, pulling it out with the water, 100% closer to the tone that I was looking for. So it wasn't that far off. But we're getting somewhere. Again, there I go saying we're getting somewhere. Oh gosh. You see, I just beat myself up. Not really. I don't beat myself up. I'm just making fun of myself at this point. There we go. And then it's kind of that tone down here too as well. As well as here. Pretty much this whole undershirt. I'm gonna pretty much exaggerate the colors. add some of this brown in here to push the shadows just a bit more. Oh my goodness, okay. Almost need a new paper towel. Fortunately, I have the roll of paper towels in here. A lot of cleaning off the brush, for sure. And just dabbing it off. So you don't get too much water. Cause I'm trying not to be muddy. Because sometimes I have a tendency of being a little too muddy with like watercolors. But gouache seems to be more layer based, so that you can kind of keep just layering it. We'll get that shadow going on in here. Oh, darn it. Okay. It did not want to work with me for a second. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. I had to adjust the lighting because I realized y'all weren't really seeing like what I have going on in real life as closely. It's definitely much closer now that I adjusted the lighting and the camera, but yeah, it's still a little off from what y'all are seeing. So I'll keep pushing it. I'll be sure to like get a really good picture and post it on my community here on YouTube later. get my fresh paper towel going. Alright, I'll go back down to this area. Kind of fill that out a little bit more. The shadow in here. Probably push the shadow just a little bit more over there. Over here there's definitely more shadowing because it almost fades off into the background. Almost. Emphasis on almost. I think I'll go ahead and get the orange on the palette so that I can start kind of doing the washes of orange on the face, just to push it a little bit more. Like, very much gonna be a wash. So like in this area, kind of pushed this area. Might have been a little too much orange, but we'll see. Very much a wash over the top. Okay, I think I figured out the problem on why y'all weren't seeing exactly what I have going on here. For some reason, my camera decided to do limited color. So far it looks like it's much closer to what I'm actually seeing right now on the screen. So it's definitely figuring out all the bugs and whatnot. But yeah, it's just a matter of getting it all laid out. I think I'll do a small wash of like red tones to bring out the flesh just a little bit more. definitely a lot of red tones up in here. Guess I need to start mixing like a darker tone for the background here in a minute. But I'll go ahead and lay down the brown here in the suit. Alright, now I'll make the background darker here in a second. Just so that I can pretty much level out any more skin tone issues. Because I think I'd put just a smidge too much orange in areas. But there's a lot of like warm tones in the reference. So alright. Now I'll go ahead and mix the darker color. Now for this, I'll definitely be using just all of the colors here, excluding white, obviously, since white's not really a color. So I get some of that orange out. Alright. Find some spot on this palette that's not taken up. May not do yellow. just because I want this to be as dark as possible. And I'll try to keep the dark color here more on the warm side to kind of go with the fill of the image. Just a little orange in there. There we go. Okay, that should bring the background out. Should. Yeah, I'll have to be a little careful around here. Now down here, this actually eats off into here a little bit. Same with this. The ear as well, just a smidge. Really just everything up in this quadrant. Kind of more brushy right here. I'll push this side. Yeah, there we go. Now that's bringing everything out just a little bit more. This is pretty much a core reason why you should never throw away any art, even if you think that it just looks awful. Because it may not actually look awful, it might just need some more little touches to it. Some more pushing. Alright. Just another layer of brown in there. I'm gonna go back and kind of darken areas of the hair. So I'll go through with like, I guess this brush right here. Tend to use like square brushes a lot, or these more circular brushes. I don't use very many brushes, as you can tell. It's like under here is a lot darker too. As well as here. Things are just a little bit darker than you'd expect. Oh, hello! Welcome. Thank you. The eyes and the undersketch took a while to get in the correct positions. There's a lot of resketching for just the eyes alone. Hello. Everyone joining. I can't quite see who's joining because I don't have that set up on my end for some reason. But I can definitely see people when they're chatting, so. Pretty much I'm just trying to get the areas of the hair that need to be darker. Just so that I can continue sorting out some flesh tone issues. Yes, yippee. But yeah, this is coming along actually. At first it was scary, but it was only scary at first because I realized my camera wasn't picking up full color. It was doing limited color, so what I was seeing was so different from what y'all were seeing, but that's pretty much resolved now. Thank goodness. Now there are still some tones that the camera isn't picking up entirely, but it's not nearly as bad as how it was. Especially when I was in the clown phase, I like to call it, where I was doing all the under layers that go before the flesh tones. So like your 5 o'clock shadow, the yellows, the reds, all that stuff. Now there, I probably. Oh gosh, that was too much water on my brush. Okay, there we go. Now we're good. But yes, flesh tone is not just flesh tone. Now if this was an acrylic painting, for acrylic paintings, I usually do what they call Veridachi or whatever, basically green. So you'd lay out all of the facial structures and everything with green tones, and then when you do the flesh tones over, you'd pretty much get all of the full range of the tones within the skin. But that's with acrylic. Now gouache, I'm doing this other method, which is like your 5 o'clock shadow, the yellows, the reds, to pretty much bring out the flesh tone more. Eventually, I will get to the horror element on this, but it's gonna be a little bit before I get there. That's definitely like last stage detailing. Yeah, over here needs to be just a smidge darker. Trying to get it brushy hair kind of look. Alright. Where did I set my water? Oh, here it is. Okay. I had to take me a swig of water. Alright. Go back in with well, darn it. I had brain fart for a second. Okay, let me just mix this over here. Go back in with a little bit of a wash over some areas of the skin to get some of the reds back in there. Because right now he looks very corpse-like. Which, I mean, it's not far off, but compared to the reference, I need to bring a little bit more of the life back into his face. Primarily in like the cheek areas here. Try not to muddy it out. Just let me get my bigger brush out. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, there we go. It's just I almost pulled the reds out just a little too much. They're kind of gone. I muddied them just a little too much earlier. There we go. And then there's just a smidge of red here that I believe I'm missing. Oh my lord. No. No. Okay, there we go. There's just a little too much red in that area. So scary. But yes. And then I think the other issue I have as well is that there's supposed to be like a little bit of red in this area right here in the upper eyes. So I'll sort that out here in a second. As soon as I get the tones more correct. Around the 5 o'clock shadow area. Perfect. Much better. And then get it in the eye crease here. Oh gosh, that was a little too much. Yeah, I gotta get my little brush back. Come on. There. Perfect. Probably just a smidge more, but not anything too overbearing. So just a little bit more red in these areas. Okay. Alright. I'll pull that out just a little. There we go. Alright. I'll go back to the hair here. Fill that out just a little bit more. Stick that there. There we go. There's still a few things that I can push 100%. I just gotta look at it for a second because it's like trying to figure out what exactly needs to be pushed is half the battle. I think really what I'm noticing is like down here, the shadow just is non-existent. It's supposed to be there, but it's just not. So I'll put that in. And then a little bit of this up here is pretty much getting eaten by the background. Same with right here. As well as a little bit of the neck area. But I don't want to take too much away because then it might look like his head floating. While that would kind of be in character, we don't need that. There's also a little bit of a shadow going on down here. I think it's just figuring out the things to break up uh, clothing articles, and even the hair a little bit. Now, there's not really much shadowing going on with the hair up there, aside from here, which I haven't quite filled out yet. But I'll figure that out when we get there. So I'm just kind of softening the shadow there. I do need to soften down here, but there is also a bit of a shadow going on in here that would 100% break up all of the issues. Yeah, art is a lot about observation and like a lot of tweaking. So yeah, that shadow can be softened just a little. Now it looks like there's a little bit of like a bluish tinge to his clothing articles specifically, which is really unusual, like how the lighting is, because like his face is very orange in comparison. I guess they're trying to go for like that complementary contrasting lighting is what I'm seeing, because they're very much trying to put more of an emphasis on the character's face, but also played with the lighting to bring the face out more in comparison. So I've got to do like a kind of a wash, not over all of the clothing, but like this area seems to be where the blue hues are residing. And just like a very, very small touch over there. Same with kind of over here. Try to get the bluish tinge in there without making it look green. I'm starting to smell the hairspray that I used to set the undersketch with. So it's like driving me a little crazy smelling the hairspray, because I'm like, who's spraying hairspray? And then I'm like, wait a second, it's my own dang fault. Okay. But yeah, just continuous little touches. It's getting much closer to what I envisioned. Much closer. Not entirely what I envisioned, but much, much closer. Now I will go ahead and do his tie. Which his tie is like a reddish hue? Yeah. Very much a reddish, brownish hue. I'll go ahead and just lay it out. That's a little too intense, my lord. Okay. Now I gotta kind of block in the shadows that were in there. With that, I'll have to probably make more brown up for. I totally just ditched the palette knife. Freaking forget you, palette knife. It's like I need just a little more orange, or not orange, my bad. Yellow in there. There we go. Okay. Now it's not so purple. Now I can just mix that with the red. Let's get that darker kind of look. So I can fill in the shadows here. Now I do need some water. It's way too dry. And then for here. Alright. Yeah. But here's definitely much darker. Now there is a little bit of a shadow here, as well as here. Now I gotta soften the shadows. It's not as red as I would like it to be. It's almost kind of a little too pink. But it could just be the red in this palette. Now the pinky tones are fine when it comes to like flesh tones. But pretty much anything else, like, I don't know. Not sure. Alright. I'm almost muddying this on accident. I think I'll just throw in an actual red. Okay, there we go. Yeah, it must have been how I mixed that specific red. Now it's almost like a little too pronounced. I'll probably have to just do this out and come back to it after it dries a little to pretty much dampen the tone a little bit, because it's like it's a little too aggressive. Now it could just be the fact that I don't quite have a suit dark enough just yet. So I think I'll just add some more darker tones to the suit and then just come back to this if it's too off-putting. Now, I feel like the shadows in the face are still just a little too drowned out, especially like here in the nose area. How long did it take you to draw out the underdrawing? Underdrawing, I would say about like 2 hours. It wasn't very long. It's very much just a rough kind of drawing. A lot of tweaking. I do gotta dampen that just a little bit. Okay. Um, yeah, I just gotta exaggerate some of these shadows because so far I'm finding out gouache, it's like you have to be a little more aggressive than in acrylic. Acrylics is like you lay it down, that's pretty much what you get. Gouache so far it's very interesting. Very interesting. It's forgiving, I would say, but it's really something. Yeah, that's a little too much in that area. But up here, there is more of a shadow going on. Same with there. I think the lack of shadows in certain areas is also throwing it off. Because there is some shadowing here. Got it just a little too wet. Some shadowing there. Some here. And as well as some right here. Oh, and his wrinkles, because there's just a little bit of wrinkles going on there. Of course, they're not really straight across. I don't know why I did that. They're more like swoopy. And then, of course, there's a shadow kind of residing here. I do gotta go in and get his eyebrows again, because I tried to do his eyebrows in earlier, and yeah, no. But his eyebrows are also very, very faint. Probably push the little shadow that's here just a little more. No, not the major. Now this shadow right here is just... Oh my gosh, I accidentally got some other color on there. Okay. Now I gotta dab that out because my gosh, that is not quite looking how I want it to. Alright, and then there's just a little bit more of a shadow going on here. Yeah, dab. I was waiting until someone said something. And then kind of get this going over here because it is a predominant shadow right there. Now it looks like his jawline is actually just a little bit higher up than I gauged in the undersketch. So definitely push that just a little bit more. Now there is a little bit of a shadow going on here as well that I gotta revisit. I do need to kind of dab these out. Alright. And then there's this little wrinkle here. It's getting much closer. Much closer to what I was envisioning. Now I do need to go ahead and probably darken the suit itself. Now that I added the shadows up here, this is not as aggressive. The layering with gouache is something else. I feel like it's a lot more layering than any other medium I've really used. So let's see. I'll go ahead and get my larger brush for this one. Yeah, no, of course there is the flap here, but in the reference it's a little washed out compared to this other flap that's more defined. So I'm gonna try to capture that as best as I can. Go ahead, do more of a wash over here. Thank you. I just looked up, I was like, what? But I will say, at first, it was looking scary. I'll have to look up that person, because I feel like I know who you're talking about, but I'm so bad with, like, actor names. It is like, insane. I'll probably know the person once I see him, but by name, I'm so bad. Alright. This one, it has to be a little bit darker down here. Just to push it. And then there's also like this kind of crease going on here, which I believe is the shadow from the flap in the Five Nights of. Oh, okay, got you. Yeah, I've yet to watch that. I need to watch it. There's so many movies that's like I have on a list to watch, and I just haven't gotten around to watching them. But right now I've been like watching, I guess, cult classic films. Is what they'd be categorized as. So just a lot of really like weird old movies, like from the 80s and 90s. Recently I was watching Highlander. 1 and 2. I haven't gotten to the third one yet. I don't know what it is, but I like cult classic type media. Cause like it's usually like very unusual things and not typical things that get turned into various forms of media, like, literature, games, movies, all that stuff. And they always put such an interesting spin on either genres or just the media in general. I do need to get just a little bit more brown kind of over here to fix this issue. Make sure I don't put my arm in the palette. Oh my goodness. Can you get a little bit more water? Okay. Oh my goodness. Gotta. it's like working against me now in that one spot. It just keeps separating, keeps parting like the Red Sea. It's like, no, I don't want to sit there. No. I'm gonna have to mix up just a little bit more brown, or actually, you know what? I'll just run with it, and I'll just push this out a little bit more, cause I swear, it had it out for me. It's like, how dare you try to tighten up that corner there? You can't do that. Okay. So there's that. Now I need to kind of go back to the eye area, I feel. Wow. Let me just fold over my paper towel. There. I'm gonna get another one. I probably should have been doing this with a rag, but I don't know. I feel like paper towel is just fine. So yeah, I'm gonna go back to the eye area and kind of get in the water lines. So like the reddish pinkish in the corners of your eyes. I'm sure there's a more formal term, but it's not coming to my mind right this second. And it just blows my mind because I do enjoy anatomy, but I'm so bad at memorizing like the names of things. One of my favorite things to draw is pretty much anatomy stuff. So I'll go ahead and get this area. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Try not to touch my painting as I'm doing this, but some people, they get like, I guess what they call like a resting stick or something to rest their hand kind of like up above what they're working on. It's a little bit harder since I am working flat, since it's a water-based medium, but yeah. Kind of put just a little touch of white in there. Even though you want to try not to use white if you can, because white tends to flatten out images. That's why I'm gonna probably do a small wash of like it's looking like a little wash of orange in his eyes. The more I'm looking at it, the more it's an orange and not really a red per se. But no eye is actually perfectly white. That is for sure. Especially when you're painting. Now the teeth, I could go back and just kind of do a small wash in there too. I don't want to make his teeth look yellow per se. But teeth are also not perfectly white either. Even when you do get them whitened, still typically aren't perfectly white. Now let's see. It's just a little bit. Oh my gosh, like, dude, fill in. There we go. That was just bugging me. It was just straight up a white dot up there, you know? I'm gonna go ahead and push the lips even more now that I got everything kind of organized. Yeah, there's like a little bit of a line here. Same with the underneath of the nose. Yeah, okay, yeah. And there's just a little touch there. Let's bring the nose out a little bit more. Same here. Just that little shadow. Now I feel like I could push just this specific wrinkle line just a little bit more. Just have to just a little bit of this going on. Just add a little more texture in there. There we go, okay. Now I do gotta clean this edge up. It's very much still showing a little bit of the under sketch. I think I'm getting pretty close to where I can do the finishing detail. He has like some blood on his face over on this side, just to add the final detailing. Now over here, it seems like I probably should push this just a little bit more. Yeah. Same with kind of the ear here. Alright. Now I do need to push the eyes just a little bit more because I noticed the pupils are just not quite as large as they should be, and they're not quite as dark as they should be. Because he's kind of having a little bit of a manic episode, I would say, in this specific scene. catch lights are also just a little bit more up to the sides. There's also one more hue of blue in his eyes. See, that's pretty darn close. Probably mix it with this brown that I got here. Looks like the upper eye. Okay. Yeah, just that little touch in there. Looks good. Now, almost need this kind of bit more predominant. Especially over on this side. Yeah, okay. I'd say that's pretty good. I'm thinking. Yes, and they really are. I just needed the little touch of the shadow up in the top of the eye. There are just some small touches I can do. Now, I don't necessarily have a small enough brush to get the more finer details in here, but I could just kind of mimic the waterline there. There's something very, very minute. Now I do probably need to add the shadow here. Because there is just a little bit of a shadow actually underneath his eyeball on this side. Just a little, nothing major. Because there's still some underpainting there that's almost a little too predominant all the way through. I do got kind of push this down. So, okay. Yeah, that's pretty good. I think I can call that good for this layer. Now I can do the finishing touch. Which is the blood detail. Because I'm going for more of that horror look. And of course, blood is not straight red. 100%. It's more of like a kind of brownish hue, I would say. With the undertones of the red. But I probably do need to mix me up just a little bit more brown. There we go. Now I can kind of put that with the red that I got. So I'll get this brush out. Kind of mix it in there. Sometimes it works. Okay. There we go. Now this one's gonna be relatively interesting how this is gonna lay out. Especially since a lot of it's kind of splattered. So I'll try to be a little light-handed with this. It's like kind of going up his face. And then he has some kind of cupping his lip. Well, some over here. Now with how I did the shadowing, it's not going to be entirely exact because I had to kind of push the shadowing a little bit. It's going to make sense here in a second. There's kind of like a gash going on over here. As well as kind of in there. Alright. Probably need to soften this one just a little. And then the gash kind of wraps around here. Kind of recedes down into here. It's also more of a blending into the shadow that's there. And then as soon as I get this to my liking, I think I'll call it done. Alright. Yeah, I'll definitely have to probably darken some of that. Blood is just a very interesting thing. I think there's a little bit over here, as well as a smidge up here. Alright, I feel like there needs to be just another kind of darker tone in here. Well, actually, you know what? Now that I'm blending it out, I think that's closer to what it needs to be. And then for a little bit of an artistic choice, I'll add just a little bit down here to kind of draw your eye down to here. To kind of counteract the tie a little bit. Though I feel like the tie looks more proper now that I got everything else going on. Because at first, when I laid down that tie, I was like, oh no. Now, it's like, I don't want the blood to flatten out the image too much. So I'm probably just gonna keep it kind of light. Just because, like, there's no translucency to it. But for the sake of the artistic choice, I think what's going on here is pretty much okay. Now I will go back here to get this kind of more pushed. Same as here. Alright. We're getting somewhere now. There I go saying it again. Okay. Really, art is all about time. How do you know when you're done? That is always a good question. I guess whenever you feel like you've accomplished what you personally want to accomplish, I feel like I'm getting very close to done. Because if I do too much more, then I might, not like it. But I will fill out just a few more of these little shadows to tighten up the edges, and then I will definitely call it done 100%. Because right around here, it just needs that tightening. Same with right here. Then I can I just polish this off. Polish this off. I mean, there's also that saying too that's like an artist's work is never actually done. It's just you get sick of looking at it, so you just put it down and then eventually come back to it. Which is true, because it's like, I would like to think that there's always room to make your art more, there's always room to push, but sometimes you just gotta be like, you know what? I think I pushed it enough. And then step back and maybe revisit it, like, years down the road and be like, man, that's amazing, or man, what was I thinking? It's always 50-50, it's one of those two. It's never like, there's never a happy medium with it, that's for sure. I'll definitely revisit old sketchbooks and be like, man, what in the world was I thinking? Or be like, wow, I've really come a long way. But it's always a matter of just not giving up, just keep pressing on. Now, I would say this is pretty much done in terms of like his face and body, but I am just gonna clean up background right here real quick. And then we can say our goodbyes and then come back another time. I'll be sure to post this on YouTube for everyone to see as well, the finished product. But all in all, it's just been pretty fun talking to y'all. Just kind of verbalizing my process, as well as, you know, being mean to myself sometimes. Not really mean, but, you know, be like, what in the world were you thinking? Now, to make this more even real quick, I'm just gonna use the big brush and do just a quick wash over this. Alright. Almost there. Can you zoom in at the end? Yes, I definitely can. I'll probably just lift up the picture and show y'all. But yeah, this is pretty freaking good for my first stream, man. It was fun. I do plan on doing some gaming related streams as well. My little character that's on the screen, I actually rigged him up to do face capture as well. So whenever I get to gaming, he'll pretty much follow my head movements as well as eye movements more definitely. But in terms of doing art, I just have him doing an idle animation and then just following my mouth. Just because I tend to lean over a little bit as I'm doing art, so the face capture wouldn't quite pick up properly. Later I plan on creating a really in-depth model, I guess, like puppet model. I guess they call them VTube or PNG tubers or something, is what I was told. To where it will have head rotations and stuff. But I've been playing around with digital illustrations for that. But this is pretty much done. So, oh my gosh, hold on. So this is it closer. Wow. Let me have it flat. This is him closer. Staring at you. But I really like how gouache kind of gets all of those tones in there that with other mediums I tend to just miss out on, or I get a little too heavy with the medium. But yeah, I really like how this turned out. Oh my gosh. Yeah, there you go. Bam. Alright guys, I'm gonna go ahead and end the broadcast. Bye.